I am a teacher who believes that our best learning comes from experience. So, on this, the most unusual High Holy Day period in memory, I think of those times in my life when I've been an eyewitness to acts of chesed, a moment when one human being shows kindness to another. For when we do something for others, we are demonstrating the very essence of relationship. My parents, Bernice and Alan, may they rest in peace, were my first and most important teachers of chesed. During an earlier viral pandemic that ravaged the world, many of you will remember it, polio, they befriended a young woman named Ruby. Like COVID-19, that polio virus attacked Ruby's lungs, and she could not breathe on her own. Long before ventilators were invented, polio patients were confined to an iron lung, a long cylindrical negative pressure device that forced air into the lungs. Lying on her back on what was called the cookie sheet, only Ruby's head stuck out of this long tank respirator. Remarkably, Ruby could read, write. She even ran a business. She became the leading seller of Avon products in Omaha, Nebraska. We visited Ruby often, bringing her favorite magazines, playing gin rummy, and just schmoozing. When a portable respirator became available, my father would lift Ruby out of the iron lung into a wheelchair, and we took her to the movies and the theater and for long car rides. She was a lifelong friend. One day, one of my mother's girlfriends returned from a National Women's League convention where she had learned about a sisterhood chapter that had helped a Jewish blind boy become a bar mitzvah by transcribing the Siddur into Braille. She asked Mom a simple question. Do you think, Bernice, we could create a Braille group at Bethel? To this day, I don't know why it captured my mother's heart, but it did. She recruited a bunch of her girlfriends who commandeered a closet in the basement of the synagogue, raised the money to buy Braille typewriters and fabricating equipment, taught themselves how to transcribe both English and Hebrew, and created the first ever Passover Haggadah for the blind. These women in the Braille group, they became lifelong friends. My father never finished high school. After his father went broke, Dad had to go to work to help bring in some money for the family. For the rest of his life, he was a voracious reader of books, teaching himself a vast vocabulary of words. When he finished a book, he never kept it. He gave it away to those he knew would be interested in the topic and would enjoy it. These readers, they became my father's lifelong friends. At our Passover Seder table, Mom and Dad always invited guests. Each year they would call Offutt Air Force Base to ask if there were any Jewish soldiers who needed an invitation to Seder. Some years they called the famous Boys Town just outside the Omaha city limits to offer Jewish kids a chance to celebrate with us. One of those boys became a lifelong friend. My parents never uttered the word chesed. They didn't sit me down to teach me how to live a life of loving kindness. They did something much, much better. They got me off the couch and they took me with them to visit Ruby, to paste the Braille Haggadah's pages together, to share a love of reading, to welcome a stranger in need of a place at the table. In each of these experiences, I learned that the reward for doing these things for others was the wonderful relationships they created with all the people whose lives my parents, Bernice and Alan, touched, creating grateful lifelong friends. May my parents' memories continue to be a blessing and an inspiration to all embracing a life of relational kindness. Shana Tova.